He'll let us on his platform. He's constantly changing it so I can't get on. I don't know why. It says we're not on, but we should be on. Let's see. We are on. All right, let's record this to the cloud. All right, that's on. We're recording this. See if it'll show up here. And there we are. Hey everybody, it's I missed you guys last week, but it is Wednesday, so this is Whiskey Wednesday.
Hey,
Jeff, we got a good crowd tonight.
I can
They
see
they
that.
all signed up. What's really weird, Jeff, is this. By the way, this is Jeffrey Baker. He is the CEO, chief cook, bottle washer for Hillrock Estate
Yeah.
Distillery. Let's say hi to Jeff. I think Jeff called some of his relatives. We had about 10 people this morning, and then it just blossomed into like a full court press.
Uncle Joe.
Uncle
Nice
Joe,
to-
there
yeah.
it is. Aunt Matilda over there,
Yeah.
and everybody's here. Well, it doesn't matter how, they're all here to enjoy some great whiskey. And you're going to show us. And before I start, we have a surprise whiskey, compliments of Megazone. So the first whiskey you have, save a little bit. Now, everybody heard me say that, right? I don't want to like, Ryan, I don't have any more of that whiskey because I drank it all. Kevork gave you big pours for the first one, he said. There's no oh, they'll find a reason, Kevork. They'll find Johnny's not here today. He did the Whiskey Wednesday last week, which was Italiano. I heard that went great. Everybody had a lot of fun. So you're stuck with me today. As I said, here's Jeffrey Baker is here tonight. Did you like Inception, right? This is all your idea. I know David Pickerel, our good friend here, who's we just talked. You and I just talked about it. Probably about 7 years passed away. Was integral in the setup and how things were going to run at Hillrock. But this is basically your baby.
Right. Would you like to hear about that?
I would love to hear about.
Sure.
That.
So,
can we drink whiskey and tell me about it at the same time?
well,
No, I'm
I
just
think
teasing you.
so.
Let's go.
2010. So here I was sitting at my farm on my front porch and looking at the view. And I was like, we really have to do something spectacular here. And we looked at everything that we could make on the farm that would be world class. And as it turned out, the fellow who built our house in 1806 was a Revolutionary War captain, but after the war, he became a very successful grain merchant.
Nice.
And New York was growing roughly half the barley and rye for the whole country in the early 1800s. So, and there were probably 1,000 farm-based distilleries. Effectively, every whiskey in the early 1800s was terroir-based. It was, either made on a farm or the grain came from around the corner more than likely. So I looked at the whole whiskey world and I was like, there's something missing here. There's no estate whiskey distilleries in the US. And I don't understand why that would be. In wine, we all know what that is. It's 100% of your grapes come from your estate. And that means that they're grounded there. So I started looking for people that knew more about whiskey and the business than I did.
Yeah.
And Dave Pickerel's name came up, and I called him up and told him what we wanted to do a field to glass whiskey distillery on our farm. And he thought it was a great idea. He felt that terroir was going to return to whiskeys like it once was. And literally had him up at my kitchen table a week later, and we started sketching out plans and started building.
Nice.
So it was really pretty amazing.
He was one of those type of guys too. And, obviously you had, how do you make a little money in the whiskey industry? You start with a lot. And, to put that all together and get that all started rolling, it's great to do with somebody who's done it before too.
Yeah, there's no way to understate. Dave was a genius, and he created all of our mash bills, protocols, trained all of our staff. He was on site. It was really us and Whistlepig were his two big ventures, effectively. And we couldn't have done it without him. The consistency, the quality, we learned everything we know from Dave. So thank God he was with us.
Yeah. Well, actually, the first whiskey we're going to try tonight is the Solera.
Yeah.
And so we should get into that. So explain a little bit about the Solera system
Yeah.
for whiskey, because
Yeah.
it follows sort of the sherry sort of thing, but
Yeah.
there's some deviations and stuff like that too.
Just before I start that, you
sure.
guys start, you can try, but
And I said save a little of that one.
so we farm about 850 acres, all within about 5 miles of our distillery, and we grow all the 100% of the barley, rye, and corn that we use in our whiskeys. We're now releasing all of our whiskeys with individual field designations, just like some wineries do. And usually you'll start noticing a harvest date and an age statement on them. So they're as particular to our farm as you could possibly get. Now, the Solera, on the other hand, is a little more complicated in that if you know, ports and sherries are aged in effectively a large pyramid of barrels. So instead of dumping a few barrels and bottling them, you take a little bit of port sherry, or in our case, whiskey from the lowest tier, cascade everything down, and then put younger port sherry or whiskey in the upper tier. So what you get is this marriage of all of our vintages that are over 6 years old. So our bourbon that we make on estate goes into new American oak for 6 years, and then it starts working its way through the Solera. So what you're drinking, actually, some of the whiskey that Dave distilled is in that glass still. And its average age is about 8.5 to 9 years. And then it ends up in Oloroso sherry cask. That's the fourth tier of our pyramid. And then it makes its way into bottling.
Nice. And that the whole thing is, it's so, I love the fact what Dave was explaining what he was doing. I just love the whole fact that like it takes like the whole, because there's no definition for there's no definition for a small batch, right?
Right.
It can be anything. Just to be smaller than your regular batch.
Yeah.
And that isn't even by the way, that's not even a definition.
Right.
It's that sort of like industry acceptance, but it's actually not anything legal that you could do. So he's like doing the Solera system, and like, how many people are you going to have like calling and yelling at you that you're not doing things right? And he says, oh, they've already been on the phone. And by cascading it that way, it's creating what I would consider the ultimate batching system.
Yeah.
How do you take the most amount of whiskey and put it into one bottle? And everybody's talking about small batches. This is actually a huge batch, but it's a huge batch on a microscopic level.
Right.
It's so weird.
The other fun thing is, depending on what we think consumers are what you're liking, we can slowly change the mash bill in that. And over a 5 or 6 year period, we can raise the rye content a little bit, or we can taper it back down. It's kind of a neat way to sort of lead a customer, frankly.
That's nice. All right, so that's your first one. So that is the Solera aged bourbon whiskey, and this is at 46.3 ABV, and the average age, as you said, was 8 years.
8.5-ish, yeah.
All right, so you guys try
Give that a
one,
try.
see what you think.
Now, remember, that's gone into Oloroso sherry cask, so I think you might pick up a little bit of floral, nutty.
A little red fruit, too.
Yeah.
If you want to put it out now, that's fine. Kavork's going to give you another whiskey, which is a special Solera. You can put that in slot 6 if you want. You can try it against the first one if you want, but I want to do a toast at the end for that one too.
Great.
So keep that in mind. But that way we don't have to wait.
They probably all know this, but your first whiskey is the far left.
Yes.
Okay.
Slot number 1. Yep. Slot number 1. It goes left to right,
numbered.
and they are numbered.
See that? I guess maybe
we thought of everything.
Wow.
Almost everything, anyways. I always like that one because I think the consistency on that is it's one of those ways to get consistent whiskey, except if you want to start screwing with it.
Yeah.
That's the technical term on that.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Good? That's the mash bill on
that. It's we
You have
make
several, right?
we make several different mash bills. I would say this is probably around maybe 30% rye. It's a fairly high rye mash bill, and small amount of barley, and
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think most of your mash bills were like kickstart.
yeah,
So
right.
like 4 or 5% just to
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
that kickstart of the fermentation going.
Yep, that's
You
right.
see a lot of things now, and I don't know. We're going to go through your lineup, but you see a lot of people now moving towards higher percentages of malted barley.
Yeah,
So, but
makes
I'm
it
not
a little easier for people
Yeah,
generally, but
yeah.
we don't always necessarily agree
I
with
don't.
that.
Yeah, but you're always like, don't make it easy.
Yeah.
I like that one. All right. So the next one. So this I haven't heard of this one yet.
Ah,
And this is Cathy's Cuvee number 6. And this is out of the Solera system, and it's at 46.3.
yeah.
And so to explain the Cuvees out
Ah,
of the Solera system, though.
okay.
All right.
So now that's Cathy, my wife. So if any of you can see that. So Cathy decided she's the one who did this
Thank you, sir.
particular blend. So what happens is when that whiskey is gone through the Solera and we pull it out, we then put some of it into a port cask, some of it into a Pedro Menez sherry cask, and some of it into a Sauternes cask. And then Cathy decided which ratios she liked the best, and that became Cathy's Cuvée. This, by the way, just won a double gold in the San Francisco competition, and I believe it came in second in the whiskeys for the whole category. So
Nice.
it was, and people like
Oh,
it.
you're never going to hear the end of that one now.
Yeah. So yeah,
She's doing all the blending now, correct?
yeah, let me just, if you ever come and visit us and you try the different whiskeys and she's there and someone asks which one you like the best, I think you know the answer, don't you?
For your sake, yes. The Cathy's Cuvée would be the answer.
Yeah.
Of course, now she knows she's watching us. And
Oh,
going,
no.
there
gosh.
she is right
Oh.
there. No. She'll go back and say, "What did you say about it?" And she can check on your work.
No, but it's kind of like it's almost like a cocktail already.
Yeah.
It's got kind of a nice
got-
depth to it, and love it.
What do you think? A little bit heavier on the on which cask?
More port.
Port. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
It's
Yes.
probably
What was the question? Is there a definition for cuvee? No.
I would say it's kind of a wine term for
Yeah.
a blend or a batch.
It's still in the batch system.
Yeah.
It's basically you're messing with finishes. So it would be a blend. A blend would be probably the proper term in the whiskey industry.
Yeah.
But I like the term cuvee because it's sort of, it sort of rings to me as like a one-off. When you say cuvee, it's like a one-off type thing. What did I say?
It's the same.
It's
94.
40, yeah, 46.3.
Yeah.
This one, she signed him too.
Now, many of you know probably
that one's signed.
Yeah, many of you probably know that Dave had done a lot of experimentation on finishes when he was at Maker's Mark. So when he came to us, we were the first of the craft folks really to do multiple wine finishes on our whiskeys. And now it's become a lot more popular.
Yeah, Dave was really at the forefront
Yeah.
of that, I
Yeah.
would say too.
Yeah.
I mean, that was where he was when he was at Maker's Mark. There was a lot of head butting
Yeah,
on
they didn't like
on
that,
They
yeah.
didn't like that because we make a whiskey and this is the way we make it.
Yeah.
And listen, you can't argue with that on in some levels too. You
Right.
know, but yeah, Dave wanted to always push the boundaries, and
Yeah.
it showed after he left. You could see what he did, and you
Yeah.
see the boundaries.
And we
that we pushed.
benefited
Yeah,
wildly.
yeah,
from that,
exactly.
so
Why not?
It was great.
Do you guys like? Is Cathy Cuvée is now your favorite, right?
All right.
Good.
Good.
Good job, guys. Good job. All right, number 3.
All right. Now, number 3 is a little bit of a new addition for us. We just started Just released this a few months ago. So this is our bottled in bond bourbon, 100 proof, and it's bourbon that we did not run through the Solera. So it's double cask aged. So it's gone through a number 3 char and then a number 4 char cask. And I want you to try it, and then I wonder whether anyone will be able to comment on what they think the mash bill might be.
All right. You guys try that, see what you think. I'm just gonna find my thing. I like the fact that it's a bottled in bond. I like the whole concept, and I like the whole thing with bottled in bond too, which not everybody goes for, but I think it's really good.
Yeah,
It creates a sort of a standard.
yeah, and it's also you folks may have heard about this, but University of Kentucky last year started an estate whiskey alliance, which I'm a founding member, the only one outside of Kentucky in the U.S. And they're now starting to certify whiskeys as coming from estate, one location, and they actually came and inspected us last fall, and we just released we just certified the first bourbon, rye, and single malt for the United States. So it's kind of a neat thing, actually. You'll start seeing that a
And
little bit more.
are you doubling this one too?
This is double cast,
yeah,
just like our rye whiskey. So it's got a little more depth to it.
Right.
But have you tried it yet? You
Yes, I'll
like
try
it? So it's a 5-year age statement. And any guesses about mash bill?
80% corn is what we got right
Any
now.
other comments? Any other votes? Okay.
70 corn. Do I get 75?
Okay. Well, I won't. You might be surprised to hear that it's 51% corn and 49 rye. So it's the highest rye content you can have in a bourbon. And we did that because we felt that that's probably what they would have been making in this part of the country. More of a rye base.
Because
More
rye you can make in New England
yeah.
and the whole eastern northeast
Yeah.
corridor.
Yeah.
It actually you can grow it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that grows everywhere, but it's hard to also distill. It's also hard to distill though.
Do you know that? So we had a funny conversation on the certification committee at the Estate Whiskey Alliance where there was a little bit of debate about what the criteria should be for certification because the Kentucky folks wanted to certify their bourbons. And
Kentucky, let me guess, the Kentucky vote said you could only be certified if you were in Kentucky.
no, they said, can we make it 50% estate grain? And I said, I don't think that works. But why would you do that? And they said, well, we don't really grow any barley or rye in Kentucky.
That's true.
It's all corn.
Yeah.
And of course, I might have, if I was, I might have said something like, well, geez, how do you make bourbon if you can't grow rye or barley? Yeah. But anyways, I didn't say that.
So good, because then you would have not been popular. I think.
Yeah. So we ended up with a bit of a compromise, but.
So what'd you come up with? What is
It's
it?
got to be 66% estate grain.
Okay.
And you have to disclose the percent of grain from your estate because we put 100 and they're going to put 66. I'd like people to know that.
Yeah, and I think all in all, I understand where you're going for because you are doing estate, like true estate. But I think a lot of times it's as long as you tell people and you're transparent.
Right.
I mean, sort of anything goes outside of maybe throwing in caramel coloring, or some sort of flavoring aspect. If you let everybody know, I think you're good.
See, I think my attitude has always been, I want to make a whiskey that can't be made any other location.
Right.
And
that's what Kentucky said too.
And I'm pretty but I'm pretty clear that our grain is going to be a little different than the grain growing it. The water's different, the soil's different. So I think if you're buying your corn from Indiana, or you're buying it from Washington State, I think it's going to be different. So think it's
And it's not bringing it
yeah.
to a place. There's
Right.
no Provence. There's no
Right.
like
So
where it's coming from
yeah,
is
right.
affecting of where it is. I can
Right.
see that.
Mhm.
Now, let me ask you a question because I know it's not probably as important to you because you're not going for basically liters per ton of alcohol.
Yeah.
But when you do your barley, are you switching up barley varietals?
Yeah. It's well, look, I mean, first of
For
all,
you on yourself to make sure that
yeah,
you're getting because
it's
that's the only one that can sort of wear itself out, right?
boy, I tell you, farming. I don't know if any of you are farmers, but it's a lot of work
Yeah,
and a lot of risk.
yeah,
And when that thunderstorm comes through, when you're about ready to harvest, you understand why people were God fearing when we were all farmers
that's right.
because you could lose half your crop.
Yeah. Or more.
So I think we have to sacrifice because every time we do a harvest, it's different. So we have to change our protocols. We have to change the way we mill it, a lot of things. So it just adds a lot more complexity. But frankly, every harvest is different, and I think our each year will be slightly different in our whiskeys, and that's I think that's okay.
Yeah,
And we get much lower yields than commercial farming operations. It's
right.
just part of it. But and if anybody wanted to guess, if you're wine drinkers and you drink a Napa Valley Cabernet, it might have cost $75 for the grapes that went into that per bottle. Hard to imagine, right? And whiskey is a couple of dollars for the grain, maybe a bottle. So there's really no excuse for people to say, gee, I can't afford not to do, sustainable farming or something like that if you're producing a
Right.
whiskey.
Right.
And that's we care about all of that. So we try to do regenerative ag practices, and we grow most of our grain pretty much organically, except the corn is a little tough.
But that goes back because since you're using Cuvee and using sort of
Yeah.
wine terms, I love the fact that like as you're being in a state distillery, when I talk to a lot of people in the wine industry, like winemakers and stuff
Hmm.
like that, especially from Europe and stuff like that, the first thing they say is like, so what's your I'm a farmer.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is what I do. I'm a farmer because everybody doesn't understand. That's the hardest part of the
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
is the farming part. And when I get to start to make wine,
Right.
to a lot of them, not that it's easy, but easier, I guess, because there's so many elements that they can't control
Right.
when they're farming that they feel they have control when they're distilling. You know,
I look, there's many
or
things that
making wine.
go wrong all across the whole process.
Right, right.
But, I think the farming part is what we all, at least for me, it just grounds us. And there's a certain innate human desire to be making something that you grow. And
I think it
that's,
also brings humility too.
yeah,
Like,
it does. It
you know
does.
that you
Yeah.
can't control everything and
Yeah.
then you have to understand that.
So and we're also we're very proud to we're preserving open space and we're preserving farmland and, all of that's something that I think we probably need to do if we want to be eating in 50 years.
Right.
And,
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you.
and drinking.
And drinking.
Yeah.
That's right. So what do you think of the bottled and bond double cask?
By the way, this is a little bit more reasonable price. So it's kind of like $75 suggested retail or something like that.
I'll tell you what it is.
Oh yeah, you would know.
No, we have a pretty good price tonight.
You do?
Our wholesaler wants to make sure that they make their profit margin.
But so we wanted to create at least one whiskey that could become a bar pour. So we've started seeing this more in where bars are putting it in a premium pour.
Nice. I do like. I'm just going to point this out because I'm big into like marketing
You like
and packaging and stuff like that too. I will say the squat bottle makes it tough. This is a billboard for a retailer. This is a nightmare because his 5 take up the same space as 6 or 7 of others. But what I do like is the use of, especially on this one, a brighter color around the neck.
Yeah.
Because that will draw somebody's attention when they're at the bar and they go,
Yeah.
what's the one with like the bluish
Yeah.
turquoise top, and it draws attention. And that's a flag. This is a flag.
Yeah.
And no one realizes this in my industry for some reason. They all go with clear on the top, and then you take it off, and it looks like every other bottle there. So if you make something around the neck, or even the color of the wood on the top, you can actually set up a sort of a flag system where people go, "What's that?" And that's what you really want, because there's a sea of bourbons, especially you guys all like we were at Fireflies last night. Fireflies has 450 whiskeys. So when you start setting them up on, you start setting everything up, things can get lost real fast. So if you can something that eye catching color, and I do I like that. I love it.
You like the Tiffany blue?
I like the Tiffany blue because it's a signal of
My
quality.
wife liked it too.
Once again, Cathy is the best.
Now you might have noticed too
You can't
that
do it that way.
we did set this up for all of you that are going to be or are Hillrock collectors. You can stack them on your bookshelf like that. It's pretty efficient.
It is.
You know,
So you should have made the label on the side look like a book binding.
it kind of does, doesn't it?
That's close.
Yeah, it's close. And
close.
all the important information is on that side
Side.
label too.
Right.
Okay.
Nice. I like that one a lot. I think that's really, really nice. All right.
Makes
So
a great cocktail.
number 4.
Okay.
We're gonna now go with basically the sister of number 3.
Yeah.
This is the rye.
Yep.
So do we want to guess what the rye is?
Mash bill.
Mash bill? Huh? 51?
Have you tried it? You tasted it yet?
No, he's
Tasted it.
guessing.
Yeah, well, you got to taste first. Well, you know what? You
can't.
Yeah, I love you for answering.
95.5.
By the way, if you look at this bottle up close, it'll say Wiltsey Bridge 2016 harvest. So this was our Wiltsey Bridge fields, which are around the corner from the distillery and harvested in 2016. So this is, and it's a double casking. So it goes first to a char 3 and then a char 4 cask. It's got a very deep, rich color, you might notice. It's almost viscous. It's rich and deep.
Yeah, it has some weight to it.
Yeah.
Well, before I go on, what was the double bourbon? What was the ABV on that?
That is 100 proof. Yeah.
100
Bottle and
because it's bottled and bond. Duh.
Yep. Yep. There you go.
Sorry, host stupid.
Well, I was looking at it, but
No, but I should have realized bottled and bond.
yeah.
All right, so where are we at?
So
what do you guys think for the
Any other
mash bill
votes
on the
on
rye?
the mash bill?
65-35? I'm going 95.5.
It's 100%.
you saying? Did you say that too?
100% rye. There's nothing else in the mash
Wow,
bill.
there you go.
Now, I think this is the most
We were
earthy, sort of terroir-driven whiskey in a way that we make. It's kind of really feels like it came from our fields.
So what are you doing? Are you using enzymes to get it going?
We will use some enzymes, but we also malt rye.
Oh, okay.
We have
So you
a
might part malt?
we have a fabulous. We also have I do release one whiskey, 1 barrel a year of malt rye right now, and it's, oh my God, I just did a 10-year-old one. It's unbelievable. It's got the delicacy of a single malt Scotch whiskey, but the sort of character of a rye.
Nice. What'd you guys think of this? 100% rye. Yes.
Well, right.
Okay, so she's saying basically that this is a sort of a Scotch drinker's rye, and why? What's the difference that you get where you're sort of getting that sharpness? It's not you lose that sharpness, but it's round and full.
You're from Queens, right? Yeah. Anyways, there's a whole series of things that we've done to tame the rye. One, we started with the European variety that's a a little more manageable. It's not as aggressive. And then the way we distill it, Dave actually had a very, we were going to trademark the procedure actually. It's a very, rye is very hard to work with.
You can
And
ask anybody who's worked with it the first time; they'll tell you exactly that.
oh my
right
God.
there.
And that's why most people don't do 100% rye whiskey. It's very tricky to
It could start
manage.
foaming and
Yeah,
gumming
it's a
up the
mess.
works.
Trust me, it can be a mess. And then the double barrel aging also changes it. More of that caramel brown sugars. It really creates that sweetness and rounds it out. So yeah, we're this one best rye whiskey in the Berlin show 3 times, by the way. So and Cathy's Cuvee, I told you, just was almost the first rated in the San Francisco competition too. So they were second.
What a lot of people being in the retail business too, and people that like are into Scotch, okay, and they go, I really want to start drinking some more American whiskeys. Where should I go? And the funny part is the most time John, myself, Gio, and even Randall and stuff like that will send people to try rye. Now, there's no rye in single malt Scotch.
No.
However, there is a lack of sort of like caramels and sweetness. And we always attribute that to the flavor components of somebody from Europe is used to having a savory breakfast.
Yeah.
Where in the United States, we're used to having, especially my generation and stuff forth, is used to having sugary cereals. And sort of that sort of does affect how you taste things and what you like. I mean, people go, why is bourbon so accepting and so big in the United States? Because it's like breakfast for us.
Yeah.
And I've had it for breakfast several times. If it won't go, can't drink all day unless you start in the morning. But when we start sending people out over that want to try to get into American whiskeys, we do rye, and these softer ryes like this are almost, as you said, it sort of brings out that same sort of some of the characteristics that you would get in Scotch whiskey. So it's definitely a great point. Yes, Lisa. Is it the same rye?
Same variety of
Same
rye?
variety.
Yes.
That's in the bottled and bond.
Well, actually, I would have to go back and check these two. We've done several different varieties, but more than likely it is the same because we've used primarily one variety.
Great. Makes sense. Matt?
This one may have a little bit in it.
May have a little bit of malted rye.
Malted rye. What I think we found though was we malted some rye like 10 years ago, and we put it away and we weren't paying attention. And one day, I went up to the rick house and we thieved some out, and like all of us were just floored. So we said, "Oh my
Eureka
God.
moment.
Oh my God!" We had been putting it in we had been using it in our rye whiskeys as a part of that component, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my God, we got to make a lot more of this." So we started making quite a bit and setting it aside really for a separate product.
That's the thing. I mean, we've done, not to mention Old Pochero, which does all 100% malted rye. The flavor components in that and with malted rye is actually quite unbelievable.
Oh, it's you'll come. You guys will come and visit us, and we'll pull out some for you.
Road trip. Not that far. We can get a bus and we can go up.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, in the back. So you've done 100% rye. Have you ever done 100% corn?
No, and again, part of it is just our.
No, stop your silly ideas, sir.
No, part of it is our kind of bias. Historically, corn was really not being grown much north of southern Pennsylvania. You were growing a little bit, but if you had a rye whiskey at George Washington's plantation, it had corn in it. If you were doing a rye whiskey up by us, it probably didn't.
It's what you were growing.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
listen, as a New England farmers or any type of farmer, you use everything you got.
Yeah.
Right. So what grows, first of all, you're going to start there. Okay. Now you have all this, let's say rye grows great. So let's grow a lot of rye. You make your flour. You're doing all this stuff with rye. Now you have all this rye left. Well, that's going to go bad.
Right.
So
are you
what
gonna
could
do
you
with that?
do
Yeah.
to that rye so that you get the most out of your crop? Well, you mill it and distill it,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you're going to do because now you have something that's not really never going to go bad, and you can trade it. And it's a commodity,
Yeah.
right? And that's what you do. It's all about being frugal and using everything you got. Nothing goes to waste,
100%.
right? And then you decided one day that, like, you know what, this distilling thing's way better than milling for flour.
Yeah.
Let's make more of that.
There's plenty of bread.
There's plenty of bread. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. So yes. How long does this say in each of them? You said it goes from number 3 char to number 4 char in the double barrel system.
Yeah, it will depend on a whole number of variables, but oftentimes, sometimes our first barrel is a 30-gallon barrel, and that means it will only be in there for 2 or 2.5 years, and then it'll go to a 4 char 53-gallon barrel, and it can stay there for, it can stay there for 20 years if we so choose.
Does it also because of the atmosphere and the environment where you are?
That matters too, but the reality is the smaller barrels, while you pick up a lot of flavor and profile quickly, you don't want too much tannin.
Right.
So if you leave that it'll start picking up too much tannin.
Now, I've talked to several people that use the 30 gallons and a couple other people that I know in the industry. And one of the things that sort of came across was if they had their druthers, they would use 30 gallons.
Yeah.
Because it's almost, they feel like that is almost like, it's not the industry standard, but it's a really good size.
Yeah.
And you get good consistency out of it. And it can, you're not cheating time, but it changes and it matures earlier and all this other stuff. But only certain people do use it and they move up because everybody does 52s, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of
53s.
things there. One is, some of you may know, Dave did some experiments where they swapped barrels with Scotland and Kentucky. And what they found was in Kentucky or our climate here, you get equivalent age in almost about half the time, because you get more temperature fluctuation. It's not as humid. There's just more movement in and out of the barrel. Now, the good thing with 30-gallon barrels is you do pick up a lot of flavor quickly, but again, it can be dangerous. A lot of people have created some pretty terrible whiskeys when they left them in there for too long.
Right.
And the other issue is now finally people are starting to do studies, the barrel manufacturers, about differences in location that they never did before. And one of the things they found out was in Kentucky or in Texas, because it's so hot, it's almost a totally different extraction profile in the barrel. So you tend to get way more tannin in those whiskeys. So a lot of folks are now putting those barrels underground or putting them in climate controlled environments. But it's every place is different.
Right. And it goes back to place.
Yeah.
Again. Where are you sourcing the barrels from?
We that's how, these are great questions, by the way. Craft distillers have really struggled with barrels from day one, pretty much, because there's been a barrel shortage. And since we had Dave, we had great relationships with all the best barrel manufacturers. So we've always had 2 or 3 manufacturers that are the top ones in the business. And it's really risky when you think about it. You put your whiskey in a barrel and you don't know what's going to happen for 6 years. So you don't really want to take a lot of risk there. We use, typically the big distillers now are using maybe 12, 18-month air-dried wood for their barrels. We won't go less than 24, but we have a lot of 48, 60-month aged wood, and the wood is much mellower then. You get a lot less tannin in the wood when they're air dried for that period.
Air dry also means basically, guys, just so you know, you're putting them out in the elements for that amount of time. So they're getting rain, water, sun, everything, and they're bleeding out some of the tannins out of the wood. And you can do that artificially by doing kiln drying, but it's not we all know nature and what man does is not quite the same.
Yeah,
And so there is a difference in when you finally get down to and it all depends. If you're making huge batches, it doesn't really matter as much as you're doing smaller to scale stuff. Then you can taste that very different flavor profiles in a smaller batches. You can bury a bad barrel at 1,000 barrels. You can't bury a bad barrel in 5.
Yeah, right. No, you can't. Or one.
But great. Everybody like the rye?
You should try that with the port finish or the Madeira finish or the Sauterne finish. That is off the charts. But unfortunately, I don't have any here for you to try tonight. But again,
that means he has to come
visit.
back.
Come and visit.
No, that means you have to come back, Tim. We'll go visit. All right, number 5, and this is now we're talking American single malt, correct?
Well, it's becoming a category. When I started, the first thing we made was actually single malt. I'll never forget. Dave was on site. We had all the contractors still there, and we were distilling. And Dave said, "Everyone, come to the still. Come to the still." And we asked everyone to taste what was coming off the still. And universally, everyone said clove and cinnamon. And he said, that's the terroir of this location. And that was single malt. So it's really hard to make in a traditional format, which, harder yet to grow your own barley than floor malted on site. And then peat smoke it, malt, mill it, malt, mash it, and truly lauter it, and then distill it. So I'm pretty proud of this one. I think it's the top rated American single malt, which I think it's got a 97 wine enthusiast rating. It won best whiskey in the whole Los Angeles competition a couple of years ago. So please try it.
That's number 5.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of layers to it. So that went new charred American oak.
Yep.
Ex-bourbon, Pedro Jimenez cask, Oloroso cask. So 4 casks.
And are you using some peat to do the?
Yeah, we bring it in from Speyside in Scotland still. So yeah.
There's only like 2 peat bogs you could probably use in the United States, and I don't even know if you can get any.
Yeah,
there's one in Maine.
Yeah. By the way, if you looked, you might notice that Scotland used to touch Nova Scotia.
Yes,
Yeah, so there is some pretty good peat up there, and we'll probably have to go there next because they're getting to the point where they want to shut down the peat bogs in Europe, which is going to be a bit of a problem for the Scotch industry if they actually do it.
All right, so what's the proof on this one, sir?
This one is 96.4 proof. So I think it's got this sort of sweetness to it that Americans like bigger, wines. They like bigger wines, whiskey, same thing. So I think we have kind of the traditional overlay, but a little more power to it.
I want to point something out here, and I think it's out of important. We got almost 50 people here tonight. Who likes peat?
Oh, wow.
Who doesn't like peat?
Yeah.
What do you think of this whiskey? Like it? Do you like it? It's more important to people who don't like peat because there is a slight peat in there.
Yeah.
But this is like what I like to say. It's the salt on the steak, not the steak.
Yeah, right.
It brings out a lot of the other flavors that are there. In the whiskey, it brings out a lot of flavors without overpowering everything else.
Well, thank you.
So I really do like this one. I like it's very well balanced.
Yeah. We also add a port finish to this sometimes, and that is just, oh my God, it's so good.
Well, it's Speyside peat
right.
too. You're actually correct, Mega.
That heavy iodine.
Yeah, that's not there. It's not that.
Lefroy, a lot of people don't.
Band-Aid.
Go for that, yeah. Yeah, medicinal kind of. It doesn't have that.
It doesn't have that, but you can taste it there, and it's really nice. It's sort of like that next day campfire.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really
I mean,
nice.
on a nice cold day like today, sit by the
Yeah, it's not supposed to
fire
be
and
cold today.
yeah, but it is.
I know. I feel bad for the people at the baseball game today. My manager and his was taking his son to the game. I'm like, put the ski pants on the kid. It's gonna be cold out there today.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you guys like it? What do you think so far? Good. Just out of curiosity, who's not had it before? Who's not had Hillrock before? Oh, what do you think? Surprising? You got some new whiskeys that you want to try now? Right? This is the whole point of this, too, by the way. What we do on Whiskey Wednesday and throughout the store is put liquid to lips so that you know the answer and you're not guessing whether you like something or not. And it's also to open your eyes for new possibilities, new flavors, new textures, because there's texture in this whiskey for certain, and new ideas too. So I'm really glad that you came tonight to try these. Now the last whiskey, Lock and Key Society is still a society, and we have members that love to do stuff. Megazone is one of those guys that loves to share his whiskey, and we thank him so much for it. You are going to try in your last whiskey that you got. I put mine in slot number 6, but I think he might have thrown it in slot number 8. Doesn't make a difference. It's the last one. This is actually from barrel number 22 of Hillrock. So this was actually signed and done by Dave Pickerel. So you now have some of the first whiskeys done on number 6, or your last whiskey that would be the same Solera system that's in number 1, which is why I asked you to save a little bit. If you want, you can taste the differences or the similarities too between the two. Mm-hmm.
There is, yeah.
There is.
There is.
You're absolutely right. In theory, there's some in this last whiskey you're trying in the first whiskey you're trying. So, and this was done by Dave. And I would like you to take that one. I'd like to do a toast. I'd like to do a toast for Jeff for coming here tonight. Thank you so much. And to Dave Pickerel for helping start this with you and putting it through. And that we can all still enjoy some of this same whiskeys so many years later.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And thank
Cheers.
all of you for coming. It's great to have you here.
Well, we got a couple things that we have to get to. We're going to say goodbye to the people on Facebook. You can go wherever you get your podcasts. Cousin Vinny will change this to a podcast. Wherever you get them, look for It's the Liquor Talking. It's on Spotify or wherever you need to go. Or you can come back and watch it on Facebook. But we're saying bye to the people on Facebook right now. You should really join us, even if you're watching us on Facebook, because it was awesome. And you got to come enjoy it yourself and be actually here. Thank you, everyone.